It seems as though the consensus at large is that we need to see more occasions when the best players in the world are actually competing against each other. In other words, not only in the major championships, and to ensure that those best players have an opportunity to compete in major championships and more, even though more major championships are hedging towards saying, no, you know what, we're going to come up with criteria to get into the majors that will allow everyone to come in, not just based upon, for example, world ranking, which the LIV players currently are not getting world ranking. And that's something that I've been saying for a long time should and needs to be worked out, because you want the best players in the majors, full stop. There are other issues that come into that. On the European side, they seemingly have worked out a formula where they can ensure that they get those best players representing Europe in the Ryder Cup. That formula still doesn't exist for the American side of the Ryder Cup. There is some indications that maybe a pathway will be found, but as far as the President's Cup goes, right now it's still on a full stop. If you're not a member of the PGA Tour in good standing, then you're not going to be on the President's Cup team as far as that goes. So there are still issues to be worked out there, but that paragraph that I read to you twice says to me that in their discussions, they're talking about a more open environment for the players to compete. Does this mean that PGA Tour players will be able to compete in some way in the LIV format, perhaps team format? And does that mean that LIV players will in some way be competing against PGA Tour players in some way? Are these ways, will they be defined by the signature events, truly raising the status of these signature events so that they are global? Is that something more akin to the World Golf Championships back in the day, where we now know, based upon the meeting and what came out of it, where they said, no, the field in these signature events is going to be 72. We've come to a consensus. I'm talking about from a tour perspective. This isn't with LIV weighing in on it, obviously, but from a tour perspective, say, no, this is where we're going to get our alternate list, so that we know that our field is going to be 72 for these signature events, and where we're going to get players to complete the field accordingly to that number if need be. Right from that standpoint, will that be where we'll see the LIV players? Will it be something broader than that? So it's very interesting. There's wild speculation always in the media. You just heard from the tour and the policy board and the respective committees. They said it was joint, where they said, we can't negotiate in public. And I understand that, and I do respect that as well, that it's not a public negotiation, and no negotiation of intricacy should be conducted in the court of public opinion, because it will flow and ebb. But there is wild speculation about a lot of stuff out there, including the status of the Ryder Cup, the aforementioned, because some are saying, no, that with the tour and with PIF and with those kind of resources, they're going to go to the PGA of America and make an offer to buy the Ryder Cup. Now, consider the fact that the discussion up to this date has always been that the DP World Tour would also be folded into this new union that would be the PGA Tour LIV and DP World Tour, formerly called the European Tour. The European side of the Ryder Cup is under the umbrella of the DP World Tour. So if this happens, they've already got the European side of the Ryder Cup. Would they end up with the U.S. side of the Ryder Cup? Again, wild speculation, who knows? But it's out there in the discourse right now, being discussed by people. So I'm curious how that will all work itself out. I think the encouraging thing is after there were a couple of board members that left the PGA Tour, the indication that we had was that the negotiations with PIF had at least stalled. There were other more hardened positions that were expressed where people are saying, well, this isn't likely to come through, because now you've got 1.5 billion, maybe upwards to 3 billion coming into the coffers of the PGA Tour. They don't need LIV. And then fast forward, and I'm not saying this had an impact on what was discussed on Tuesday, but I'm curious if it did, that Bryson DeChambeau wins the U.S. Open. And with that victory, could it not be argued that right now LIV has the most popular player in the world amongst their ranks? Could that be the case, right? What would your opinion be relative to Sam? I'm not talking about whether you love him or hate him and you want to cast reality based upon that. I'm talking about at mass. See, that's to that point. That's the thing I'm always talking about, Dom. is that we kind of live in a world today that the reality is how you perceive it, and there's no other reality that can possibly exist. So whether you like Bryson or don't like Bryson is not where I'm going right now. What I'm talking about is, do the vast majority like Bryson better than any other player? And if I asked you that same question as little as 2 weeks ago, you would have made a very strong argument. No, it's definitively Rory McIlroy. It may well still be Rory McIlroy. I'm not saying that I have the answer. I'm just proposing it to you to say, what is it? What do you think it is? Which brings me to, as I'm hitting you with all these questions today, Dom, did you do a question of the day today? And where do we stand with that? What are you hearing from the people as we kick off the show on this Wednesday?
The question of the day, for you folks, is directly tied into what you've been talking about, which I happen to post immediately. So I've got some numbers for you. Will a deal between PIF and the PGA Tour ever actually happen? Yes, definitely, or no, definitely not. Right now, 53-47. 53%, well, 54%, it's moving as we talk, 46%. 54% are saying definitely, but there is obviously a strong contingent that are thinking this is still not going to happen, which is interesting. I don't know how you read that stuff, but there's a lot of comments coming in as well. Like, the PGA Tour did a deal with SSG, implying they don't need a deal with PIF, or that doesn't matter. People writing, I want to see LIV and the PGA Tour together. I prefer that. People, they made their choice. It's already over. The PGA Tour needs a deal, someone writes. They're not going to make a deal. It's never going to happen. So you can see the divide. It's just all over the map. Everybody's just not sure about what's going to happen. My question for you is, and I feel like because you're an optimist, you're just going to say, oh, no, it's okay. But I think it's a fair question. If they can't figure it out, is it detrimental to the future health of golf?
Say it again, Tom.
I said, is it detrimental to the future health of the sport of golf if a deal is not done?
Yes, in my opinion. I know many people will disagree with me on that. There are many people that are vehemently against the...
say no. So you think that the best interest of the sport of golf is a deal? It's got to get done.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. And
well, the people are saying that 56% think it's going to happen, but 44%, a lot of them don't think it's going to happen.
It's like we used to ask this question when we were just doing the radio side, PGA Tour radio, Dom. And you and I would ask a question. I would say, in a given week, right, who do you think is going to win? And who do you want to win? Realizing that those are two completely separate questions. So in this case, the question of, do you think a deal is going to come together? How much of that 57-47, I believe you said, whatever the percentages are now, how much of that is influenced by people answering based upon what they want reality be, than based upon what they actually think is going to happen? You've got these entities, these parties that are actively involved in negotiations. You've got discussions that are going to impact at least billions of dollars moving forward, right? There's so many different things. You got to remember, the PGA Tour is not that far away from being back in a negotiation table for television discussions, a couple of years at most, right? And so if you're in that position, it's like I'm sure you heard of what also came out of those board meetings, that Tiger's been given basically kind of a forever exemption. It's like the Tiger exemption. It's for players that have won 80 or more times, or a player that's won 80 or more times, which is him. And the only one that's alive that has done that on the PGA Tour. So we can play in these events forever. That's great. I think it's interesting to me. I understand from a tour perspective why they're doing it, because he's Tiger, and if you looked at like ratings with where they were early in the week for the U.S. Open, their ratings when Tiger was playing in the afternoon were much better than when he wasn't. So people still are interested in Tiger, and they want to see what Tiger's doing, and et cetera, et cetera. So now they've got Tiger playing, but then contrast that against Tiger, who says, well, first of all, I can't play that much. So the fact that he's exempt into these 8 signature events, okay, does it matter if he doesn't play then? or is this to try to force him to play, like, or clear the path for him to play, which he would have got those exemptions anyway if he wanted to. So I'm kind of like, and then you have Tiger that says, well, I don't want to be a ceremonial golfer. I still think that if everything goes my way, that I can win. Okay. So it's like, what's the connection with all this? So I don't. I think all of it goes back to the TV negotiations, which is keep Tiger around as much as you possibly can, any way you can, for as long as you can, from that standpoint. And then from the standpoint of the good of the game, I was talking obviously from a business perspective here. If you have events where you can say, yeah, with what we've put together, assuming this deal goes through, with what we've put together, we've now found a pathway where we can have the best of the best of the best back together again. I don't expect it's going to be frequent, and maybe I'm wrong on that, but I expect it's going to be set up as something special, something heightened. I'm sure something that comes with big tickets all around, and I think it's great for the fans. I've said this many times since this whole kind of chaos erupted in the game of golf at its highest competitive tiers, is that it's actually helped the majors. Did it not make the U.S. Open more exciting? Where it came down to, I mean, it was like Hollywood scripted. It came down to a star that plays on LIV and Bryson DeChambeau against Rory McIlroy, the star of the PGA Tour, save for Tiger Woods, but Tiger hasn't been competitive, so that's why I'm putting in the context of players that are competitive right now. You had Rory McIlroy representing the PGA Tour. You had Bryson DeChambeau representing LIV, and it played out as an epic match. And Bryson ended up taking home the trophy for a whole variety of reasons, based on, no doubt, on what he did. So I want to give full credit to someone that won the tournament. He faced the obstacles, he faced the opportunities, and he won. And Rory McIlroy had the opportunities, but he was consumed by circumstance, and he lost. And so it was unbelievable. And then in the wake of all that, we see this Bryson who, I've been calling him the people's champion because of the way that he reacted, the way that he shared it with everybody. You probably saw this stuff about him being on with Jimmy Fallon and, meeting Kevin Costner before he went on the air in the green room, which, it's just, it's look at that. What I love about it is every picture you see of Bryson, he's holding on to the trophy. It's almost going to become a meme of I think of Bryson DeChambeau. Anywhere he is, he's going to have that trophy with him. It's like some people that have to travel with the oxygen tank. That's going to be Bryson with the U.S. Open trophy, and I don't blame him. Bring it with you wherever you can. Have it with you wherever you can. Live and breathe with that.